Good afternoon. I'm Christopher O'Brien, and this is my environmental policy brief on the Nonpoint Source Pollution Plan, bringing the Clean Water Act into the 21st century. In 1972, growing concern for water pollution led to the Clean Water Act. This act, even with its sweeping amendments, does not regulate non-point source pollutants, particularly from agriculture. The painting here is of American Gothic by Grant Wood and shows the small farmer way of thinking which the Clean Water Act embraces. Why regulate agricultural runoff? It contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and numerous pesticides which cause eutrophication, dead zones such as the one in the Gulf of Mexico, and contaminated water sources. For instance, nearly 60% of all nitrogen fertilizer enters ground and surface waters. Overspraying of crops has drastically increased production, but at the cost of public health, enjoyment of a pristine environment, animal deaths resulting in damages to fisheries both recreationally and commercially, among others, all for the American need of cheap food when they want it. Earl Butz, the 18th U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, is famous for his policy of get big or get out. This brought agriculture into the big business state of mind and resulted in a new way of approaching farming in America. Trends show the Earl Butz way of thinking has taken root in American culture. The blue line represents the number of farms in the millions, while the orange represents the average farm acre. These lines are almost mirror images of each other. Examining corn crops, we see the relationship between fertilizer use per acre in pounds and the loss. In 2013 alone, there were more than 95 million acres of corn planted in the United States. This would result in greater than 8 billion pounds of fertilizer that ran off into surrounding areas. The Non-Point Source Pollution Plan considers tracking pollutants in two ways, by marker tracing or a four-factor method. These methods would regulate the amount of fertilizer used per acre, assuming 60% loss. Marker tracing introduces an additive to the soil that is water insoluble and traceable in a linear fashion, which would directly relate to runoff. A candidate would be barium sulfide, which is non-toxic and unregulated under the tolerances and exemptions for pesticides, chemical residues, and food. The four-factor method examines porosity of the soil, distance to the nearest body of water, including underground aquifers, the crop type, and the hydrolytic properties of the pesticide or what extent it dissolves in water. Why these methods? Forensic analysis has greatly changed since 1972. However, it still remains that non-point sources are almost impossible to track. These methods observe the properties without the expensive use of gas chromatography mass spectrometry. This act will bring about equity to the people, balancing the chronic issue of overspraying. Clean water, fishing and swimming, preservation of habitats, and preventing species mass mortality may result if the total concentration of runoff is abated, assuming the damage can be reversed with remediation effects. This becomes almost a tragedy of the commons, the use of water, a shared resource in agriculture, in the overuse of pesticides by farmers acting in their own self-interest spoil this common resource. We see here a mass mortality event off the coast of Chile in 2016. The non-point source pollution plan will be funded by a 0.5% tax on agricultural chemicals and fertilizers. This project will be phased in over 6 years, overseen by the EPA. Evaluation of the two methods and formulation of the four-factor method will take place over the first 2 years, with evaluations of the maximum load limit when a field is sprayed per day in pounds per acre. The consequences of noncompliance will follow the criminal provisions of the Clean Water Act, which may result in jail time or fines. This act is not without potential consequences. It seeks equality and balance of agriculture and benefits to the population. Decreased crop yield may arise from limitations in spraying, leading to increased food prices and the use of GMOs. Corn ethanol production and cost may increase as well. The breadbasket states such as Iowa would fiercely oppose this plan, and if the legislature supports it, may equate to political suicide. Importing crops from other nations may increase. The increased chemical cost would result in not only farm pushback, but chemical manufacturers as well. This plan also goes against the American Gothic long-held view of farming. Looking towards the future, we need to address this issue and soon. The four-factor method will be economical and easier to enforce and monitor should it be utilized. The Clean Air Act regulates many types of air pollutants and greenhouse gases in the public interest of clean air and stemming climate change effects. Agricultural non-point source pollution is not happening slowly, relatively speaking, as global increases in temperatures. The consequences are here and now and threaten livelihoods, health, and the environment. Red tide events are growing in number, dead zones are constantly expanding, and mass mortality events have happened at an ever-increasing rate. Will it be adequate? Time will tell the tale. Failure to address agricultural non-point source pollution may have dire consequences and unreversible environmental effects that will be felt for countless generations to come. Thank you.